G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. In this video today, I'm going to be going over my tips for round 24 of the 2023 AFL season. Of course, the final tipping video for this home and away season. It has been an absolute blast. I say it's been a blast even though I've been sitting in the bottom half of my tipping competition all year, but I like to keep positive things. So come on, let's get into these tips, shall we? Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you do want going to enjoy. And let's get into them. Okay everyone, so as always we do go over my tips from the previous round, and for my tips for round 23 I managed to get a 6 out of 9. I guess that's an okay score in the top 34%. So hey, the last few weeks or so my tipping has actually been quite good, but just hasn't been that consistent for the whole year. First tip, I did back in Collingwood just because I felt with this sort of game, this is a game where Collingwood really need to win, and I just feel they still are probably the benchmark of the competition as a whole, but at the moment they just continue to drop games now. That is the last 4 games I've dropped 3. They were pretty subpar on Friday night. I thought they played okay from time to time, but they were just outclassed and out-hunted, and especially outdone in defence by the Brisbane Lions, who just looked like a tier above with this game. They played a brilliant brand of footy and were true deserving winners. And then did tip in the Tigers at the MCG. I know a few people probably would have went with North, but I can't back in North with tipping. And also the Tigers, you know, a few premiership stars, 𝗏𝐼𝐿𝐿, 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐿 their last game. I just couldn't see him losing it. Backed in the Blues, and I did say, to be fair, in the video last week, I reckon this game would be close. And it sure was. The Blues came back from 40 points down after quarter time. How they came back was awesome. Just again, a lot of those role players really playing their part. That's the big key for why the Blues have been up and about this second half of the year. Curnow was easily the best on ground. He was an absolute superstar, key to their victory in a close fought win by 4 points. Did back in the Giants, and with some sort of confidence. Didn't really give Essendon much of a chance, to be honest, but yeah, the Giants at home are overall pretty strong, and they knocked the Dons out of the park with ease. They were just awesome with pretty much every facet of the game. Pretty happy with this tip. For once, I actually did feel bullish on the Saints. They've been playing overall quite good, and they've been showing upside with how they've been attacking and everything the past few weeks, and their pressure and all that whatnot, and all that seemed to click on Saturday night. They're a little bit inaccurate, but after halftime they really put the foot down and finished long season with a huge win over the Catters. So happy with that tip, got that one right. Didn't back in my Swannies. I thought Adelaide would get this done. Controversy galore. I guess with the circumstances, probably should have gotten this tip right. It was a goal. They probably should have won the game. In fact, they should have won the game, really, because the Swans weren't kicking a goal at all. With a minute and 10 seconds left, they just were cooked during that 4th term. But hey, you know, the Swans were pretty much the better side for 3 quarters. So they put on enough scoreboard pressure to hold on and win. So unfortunately, that's a tip wrong. Backed in the Bulldogs, and I thought this one would be an easy one. Doggies play their best footy at Marvel. They've shown that pretty much all year. Losing to West Coast, absolutely insipid, but hey, how about them Eagles? I think they've actually been playing quite okay at Marvel the last few weeks, but they were awesome. They moved the ball really well. They were dominant around the midfield and pretty much beating the Bulldogs in their own good game. You know, scoring from stoppage and a lot of scoring from centre bounces too. And you know, 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐿 and Kelly had some awesome games. Cripps, the legend too, Australian. Was a great win for the Eagles, get around them. Then the next game did back in Melbourne. I did give Hawthorn a chance, but yeah, they just really ran out of steam, especially in that 4th term. Melbourne were able to run away with it, rebounded really well, had no worries with a lot of inside 50s and got it done. And did back in Port Adelaide away from home. Just felt if they're the serious team, if they're a top 4 team, they find a way to win this game. And yeah, it was a game in the balance, but yeah, their midfield really got to work in that second half and pretty much kept Fremantle at arm's length throughout that second half. So yeah, 6 out of 9, not a bad score. Final round of this home league season. Let's finish it off on a high note before finals. Okay everyone, so let's get into the tips for round 24. Unfortunately, this round isn't going to be as hyped up as it should be because there's not really many season-defining games. There's only really 2 teams playing for that final 8th position, being GWS or Western Bulldogs. We thought this would be a lot closer of a race, so it's a bit more dead than last year's final round, that's safe to say. But hey, still's got some cracking matchups. First one here, the Dons hosting the Pies at the MCG. Essendon, yes, there still are a chance to make finals, but they probably have to win this game by over 120 points, which certainly isn't the case. I know Collingwood's been out of form, but so is Essendon. But we do know both teams, no matter how good or bad they've been going at, these are just games where both teams, I reckon, do turn up. But the last year or so, these have been great games of footy. We've seen close ones, we've seen crazy finishes, and do we see another one on the stroke of the home and away season? Perhaps. I could definitely see this one. Essendon are pretty heavy outsiders, with this one being $4.60, losing against the Giants and pretty much winning by under a kick against North Melbourne and West Coast the past 2 weeks. Gear does really state their form. They've just not been that good enough. Some games they look poor defensively, then another game they'll just get easily done in the midfield, and then they'll just be, the opposition will just walk the ball past them and all that whatnot. But hey, maybe you give them a chance here against the Pies, who the injuries have been hurting them. I think Nick Dacos, don't think he comes back this week, but he is looking healthy towards his finals push. I don't know what the situation is with Murphy, don't know about Moore either, but they're having issues in defence really. They got done by Brisbane in their forward half. Every time the ball went inside 50, it just felt like, or pretty much resulted in a goal. They got outdone in the midfield. They moved the ball really just stale, like they just didn't, they lacked a lot of cohesion with their handball chains and everything. They just didn't look fresh last week. But just looking at this one the past few weeks and just looking at both teams on paper, I think right off the bat I'll just have to be tipping Collingwood here. Again, these are the sort of games where it should be close. I feel like both teams will turn up to play, but I just feel like Collingwood are still the better team than Essendon at the moment. The Dons are having issues in their midfield, they're lacking competitiveness, but from week to week things change with Essendon. They've been a little bit up and down, especially in the second half of the season. They've played poor, then they actually play a great brand, so I expect them to turn up for this game. But yeah, Collingwood, even though they have their injuries, they still should get it done. Look, I thought they didn't play awful. They still played a decent brand to get close to Brisbane, but I expect a win, especially the MCG where the Pies play their best footy, and yeah, just get a bit of confidence prior to the finals to really sharpen up their ball movement against a side who will not back down, especially against their bitter rivals with the Pies. So Colin win this game. Friday night footy. I don't know, maybe it's close, but I reckon Collingwood just run away with it and win by 19 points. Next game here, we do have the Hawks hosting the Fremantle Dockers at the MCG, 1:45 PM, so this game will be playing simultaneously with the North and Gold Coast game. Not much to play for these two teams. Freo, maybe if they drop this game, they could maybe push down to the bottom four, but it doesn't matter anyway because their first pick belongs to the Demons, so plenty of death riding from Melbourne fans heading into this game, that's safe to say. But yeah, a bit of a tough one here, to be honest. Hawthorn, usually a very good side at home. They're quite gallant against the Demons, but probably now, as it's end of the season, a bit of a young side, you're starting to see a few of those players start to run out of steam a little bit. You could see from last week's hit-out against the Demons, Hawthorn were really lacking Mitch Lewis up forward and John Newcombe in the midfield. 𝗏𝐼𝐻𝐼𝗶𝗋𝗏 debut was quite good, I must say, but I think they will be a test for this weekend, so if they both get up, do like the Hawks here. In fact, they are the favourites. When was the last time Hawthorn were the favourites for a game? It has been quite a while. But yeah, Fremantle, team not to write off with this one. I think, yeah, they've been win-loss the last few weeks, but their losses they've been pretty strong in, especially at home. They've pushed a few opponents quite well, but they just lack a bit of polish and a bit of ball skills from here or there. So, yeah, they're not in the greatest of form, but they're definitely capable of knocking off Hawthorn here. Bit of a tough one. I expect probably Hawthorn to win this game. They're up and about a wee bit, but as I always say, you can't back in the Hawks too much, given the team they are, and especially what I've been saying with tipping this year. I actually might go with the Dockers. They have been pressed me the last few weeks, and they got the win over the Demons at the MCG. That's the last time they played at the G as well. So I will go with the upset. I reckon Freo can get this one done on the road and finish their season pretty strong. I think they're due for a good win. So yeah, I reckon they'll get this one done and knock off the Hawks in a good, tough KG affair by 11 points. We do have North Melbourne hosting the Gold Coast Suns at Blundstone Arena. If this one was at Marvel, I felt like I'd just be tipping Gold Coast straight away. They usually play quite well there, but hey, hold your horses. In Tassie, I think North have gone okay this year. They pushed the Demons for a quarter. At least they started really well, but you know, Gold Coast, they're a team that has been a little bit up and down in terms of the win-loss record. They've dropped the last 3 games, but they've been overall pretty competitive. They've had some close losses the past few weeks. They're close almost, well, not so close, but not a bad effort, I guess, against the Crows. They had one of those shoulda, woulda, coulda losses. They had a great first half against Sydney. Of course, they were very competitive and really should have won the game in some sort of way, in what way you look at it, against the Blues. And yeah, against North Melbourne, they should really head into this game with a chock full of confidence, get the win. Damien Hardwick, of course, is announced as the coach, so that really will probably lift a lot of morales in the playing group, as it will be Stephen King's last game as interim coach. So yeah, I'm expecting a Gold Coast win here. Maybe North push the Suns for a quarter or two. You never know what happens down there in Tassie. They can play good footy there from time to time. But yeah, the Suns, I reckon, there's still a chance to tie their club record for the most wins of the season. I think they do deserve it. They should be able to take care of North Melbourne here and get the win, and win convincingly by 30 points. Next game here is a huge one in terms of shaping the 8. We do have the Brisbane Lions hosting the Saints at the Gabba. Brisbane coming in as very short favourites, $1.20 to $4.50. So yeah, that's some good value if anyone wants to get on the punt for the Saints. But the stats do not lie. Brisbane have not lost at the Gabba this year, so you could pretty much back in the Lions straight away. But I think in general, I just feel like Saints, from what I can remember, played the Gabba pretty well. They got close against the Lions last year. They did play there. So, yeah, I think the Saints, right off the bat of this tip, I think that could be a good chance here against Brisbane to maybe potentially knock them off. It is, of course, a big game in terms of the 8. If Brisbane win, they'll lock in a top 2 spot. If the Saints win, they'll lock in a home and elimination final spot. They're in really good form, the Saints. I feel like they're a team now that's capable of pushing any club and maybe getting a win here. But yeah, off the back of the win last week, Brisbane were very strong. Whenever they went inside 50, they looked great. Their midfield craft is looking great. Their top 4 clearance side, of course. Defence looking great as well. Leicester and Payne playing their parts. Payne was actually poor last week, but usually he's up and about. But Harris Andrews was great last week too. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐿 back in the team. Zorko's in great form. I feel like a lot of their focal points and most of their team is starting to hit their straps. And yeah, I don't know. I actually really like the Saints for this one. I think they can, if they can really bring their pressure and be efficient in front of goal, and from what their midfield was able to produce last week, very, very strong in the stoppages. Maybe try and beat Brisbane in their own game of that clearance game. Could give them a chance, but the Lions haven't lost at the Gabba this year, so I'll be backing in Brisbane for a bit of the safe tip. I'm feeling a little bit radical, and maybe tipping the Saints, but I don't know. I'm just going to be backing in Brisbane. They are probably the better team in form anyway, so yeah. We'll go the Lions to knock off the Saints, and they'll win. Close game, I reckon. I reckon this one will be close. We'll go Brisbane by 12 points. Saturday night footy, another massive game in terms of this season. We do have the Geelong Cats with nothing to play for, hosting the Western Bulldogs at 𝐺𝐵A. And, the Cats not making finals this year, but, they're a very successful club, so I do expect them to bounce back next year. But team not to write off, especially with this game. They still want to play their best brand, especially at home. Don't want to disappoint the fans. And Chris Scott has always been bullish backing his players too. So, yeah, you never want to be too reactionary, no matter if they win or lose. So, yeah, this is a tough one here. The Bulldogs actually haven't beat the Cats at 𝐺𝐵A, I think, since 2003, I did hear, with a bit of commentary from a few pundits. So, yeah, wow. When you think about it that way, you always question why they're the favourites. They lost to West Coast last week. I know Geelong haven't been great either, especially the last 2 weeks. They've been pretty poor in the midfield and in their back half. They've just not looked like they've just looked like a shell themselves. The outs of Blitzars and Guthrie still hurting them, of course. Dangerfield's a little bit out of form. With that, they have no ruck, so they're just getting destroyed in the ruck week by week. Tim English should have a day out here. This is a tough one. Do I back in the Bulldogs to make finals? I give them every chance, and honestly, I really don't know. I feel like the Bulldogs, there's a few of those particular players that really did stand up, like the likes of Bontempelli. Big one for the Bulldogs, though, is they do get back 𝐿iberitoro from concussion, so that is a huge in. Really does bolster their midfield group. And look, if they can just really, fix their issues inside 50, thought they were terrible moving the ball last week against the Eagles. It's a skinny ground, 𝐺𝐵A, so they need to pick their pockets, pick up their areas inside 50 really well. But yeah, the Cats at home, it's always a tip where you do probably want to back them in, no matter how good or bad form they have been in. It's a 50-50 game. I just really don't know. And there also has been news today that Tom Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron are actually getting rested from this game, so they won't be playing. And because of that, I think it probably sways my tip towards the Bulldogs. They do get 𝐓𝐴𝐻𝐿𝐷 back in, which is a massive in. It really does change things in that midfield for them because he's such a crucial player to their side. So I see him bouncing back. I think they can get it done. Again, they haven't won there in over 20 years, or pretty much around 20 years. But the last few times they've played at the Cattery, they had that strong start against them last year, and they had that game they did drop with the rolling after the siren shot. So they've had some close ones. So I think the Doggies get it done and keep their season alive. And I reckon, yeah, it could go right down the wire. I could see that, but I reckon the Bulldogs run away with it. They kick well and win by 16 points. We do have the Eagles hosting the Crows at Optus Stadium. Such a shame this one is a dead rubber game for the Crows. They really should be a good chance for the 8, but unfortunately with that blunder of the no-goal call, they won't be playing finals footy in September. There's a lot of questions and, you know, a lot of sayings and thoughts around it. Yes, there is, if you look at it in another way, in a more pessimistic but more realistic way, they just really kicked themselves out of a lot of games this year. So in the end, they pretty much just have themselves to blame. So they will be heading over to the Eagles' nest here to probably win this game of footy. But hey, West Coast coming off another really promising win. I really like the way they did go at it. McGovern was huge in their back line. Kelly was great in the midfield. Oscar Allen and a few of the young players, of course, in there too. 𝐓𝐿𝐷 was great. Not long too up forward. Petruccelli had a few nice moments as well. So, hey, in front of a full home crowd, off the back of the win, could be quite a bit of a turnout. So, I reckon that could be a bit of a decent chance here, West Coast. But, you know, Adelaide will be fired up after their game last week. I still just didn't like the way they did play, though. I thought they were really poor and mediocre for most of that game. They came back strong, and credit to them, but they just got picked apart easily by the Swans. They couldn't get the ball forward too much in that first half. They did defended terribly, and this is sort of, you know, the issues they're having with their back six. Inexperienced back line, but, you know, I still feel like they are the better team on paper here, and I will be backing them in. Again, the Eagles maybe a decent chance, but I still don't have enough confidence to back them in. So yeah, I reckon Adelaide finish off their year strong. As a neutral of the Crows, they've had a great year and are definitely a very respectable side. So Adelaide finish off their year with a win over West Coast and win convincingly. We'll go the Crows by 41 points. Moving on now to the Sunday games. First one here, we do have Port Adelaide hosting the Tigers at Adelaide Oval. 12:30 PM this one, which we don't usually have games at 12:30. I think because of the final round, there are a few time adjustments. But yeah, Port Adelaide at home, right off the bat, should be winning this game of footy. No, it should be a great test. I think the Tigers will definitely give them a run for their money. They do play that tough and scrappy style. You know, the last 5 weeks they've dropped 3, so they haven't been in the greatest form. But yeah, they still were pretty scrappy against North Melbourne. They did get the job done, but by foot they're looking a little bit mediocre. They didn't really defend too great, the defensive 50 against North, and you know, a class side like Port Adelaide, they're definitely going to be up and about. They know the opportunity that is on stake. If the Lions do lose the game against the Saints, they can push up into the top 2. But even that alone, I do expect them to play their best brand here. They definitely are up and about. They're now starting to rebound after their losing streak, especially at home. They play their best footy there. So yeah, Port Adelaide win this game. They show their dominance in their forward half, and a few plays in their midfielders have been playing really good footy. So Port Adelaide win this game against the Tigers and win well by 25 points. And now for probably one of the games of the round. This one should be a great one. The Swans hosting the Melbourne Demons at the SCG. Big opportunity here for the D's to try and push to, and again, another top 2 spot. They are still a chance, but a bit of an outsider chance as they are a game off third at the moment. But yeah, the Swans, you know, they are the second most informed team of the competition, with the first being the Blues. I know all the controversy from last week that is still being talked about. It is disgraceful, but how they did play in general against Adelaide last week was great. In fact, I don't think really many teams like the Swans for that first 3 quarters dominated the Crows at home as much as they did. They were very impressive. But again, their fourth quarters continue to really kill them. They've been terrible in the fourth terms this year, but as of late, their efficiency's been great. They've been a little bit better in the stoppage and contested game, which they really need to be against the Demons, who are definitely a great side, and not only contested in clearance game, but their supplying it with inside 50s has been very good. They've been able to put on scores as of late. Again, Harry Petty has hurt them, but Melksham had a great game last week. Van Ryn as well. So when they find those targets, they're a hard team to beat, Melbourne. But yeah, this one in the SCG, I'm pretty bullish on the Swans. I still feel like deep down they are papering over the cracks a little bit, which should maybe happen in the long run. Maybe they do lose a final. That will probably inevitably come, perhaps. But yeah, they are just chipping away and getting results. They're doing it pretty well. They're winning close. They're winning big. They're winning convincingly from a quarter here or there. So you know what? I'll back in the Swannies. I feel like they're a great chance here against Melbourne. You know, Melbourne definitely want to try and own the contested game like they did back in round 3. I think these two teams last did play. They smacked the Swans around the ball. If they can get the cohesion going in their forward line, they should be a great chance here. Big game, of course, for the likes of Lever and May. The back six have been actually working quite well as of late. McVee's been very reliable. Rivers has been rebounding across halfback really well. But yeah, Lever and May are the big parts because every time the ball's going in the Swans forward half, you know, they've been very efficient when scoring, and especially shots at goal too. So yeah, if the Swans can kick accurately and break even the contest, I think they can win this game. If the D's can just try and put on a bit of a score, and you know, Van Ryn and 𝐼𝐿𝐴𝐿 really do get up and about in their forward half, works Petrarca maybe kicking a few goals and try and own it in that contested game, I think Melbourne win the game. But yeah, a bit of a 50-50 one, I do think. The Swans are slight favourites, I think, because they just keep on finding ways to win. I'll back in the Swannies and they'll pick up this win. Close game, I reckon. This one will go right down to the wire. We'll go the Swans by straight kick, 6 points. And for the final game of the round, we do have another season-defining one here. The Blues hosting the Giants at Marvel Stadium, 6:10 p.m. Why does this one have to be at bloody 6 o'clock? Having to wait right to the end of the weekend, but I'm not complaining. A weekend full of footy. I'll bloody take every day of the week. So this one will almost turn into a dead rubber game if the Bulldogs do lose. But yeah, it still is a big game for the Giants if the Doggies do get up or not, because it's a big test against Carlton at Marvel Stadium. Of course, the Blues play their best footy at their playpen of marbles. So, yeah, right off the bat, they should probably be winning this game of footy. But, yeah, the Giants have been a little bit up and down in terms of the win-loss record. I feel like, in general, their biggest outlier was that loss against Port Adelaide. They were terrible. Apart from that game, their method has still looked pretty good. They've moved the ball really well. As a back six, they were great last week against Essendon. They're definitely going to be up and about in terms of confidence against the Blues. And, you know, for a quarter or two, Carlton have been a little bit iffy. But in general, they're still finding ways to win. And because of that, their self-belief continues. They're at home. I like the Giants with this one. I feel like if they can, you know, do bits in their midfield, they've been great. You know, Tom Green's been outstanding the last few weeks. 𝐴𝐿𝐴𝐿 as well. Hogan's been in great form too. A few of their plays are definitely really sharpening up their ability heading into the final series. But yeah, Carlton at home, I just feel like it's hard to go past them at the moment. They could possibly be down maybe by 3 goals at three-quarter time, but I've just got a lot of confidence in the Blues. No matter what the deficit is, they find ways to win. And I think Cherry's back in this game too, which is a big inclusion for the Blues. So I'll back in Carlton. They play their best footy at home, and they should be able to beat the Giants and potentially, who knows, knock off their season with the results of this weekend. So Carlton win this game of footy and now win by 16 points. So everyone, there were my tips for round 24 of the 2023 AFL season. Feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what you did think of my tips, and also feel free to comment down your tips down below as well, as technically this is the biggest round of tipping this year, given it is the last round. So yeah, there's a lot of hard games to tip, but yeah, that's what I have gone with in the end. So best of luck to the weekend, everyone, for your tips. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy today's video. Should be a cracking round of footy heading into the final one. And apart from that, everyone, I will talk to you later. See you later, fellas.